And it's a good.
Really? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put the
Really? And it's a good.
put everything on.
Okay.
There we are. Greetings, everyone. Look, see, people just jump on immediately. My name is Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade. I am the executive director at A Healing Paradigm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am also a licensed psychologist. I am here today joined with two of my amazing colleagues, Mr. Calvin Smith, who is a school psychologist, and Dr. Samuel Maddox, who is a child psychologist. And we are going to talk about, Dr. Maddox helped me come up with this one, learning game, understanding racism and systemic oppression in schools. I know I got a couple of people on, and they're of the people that are watching so far, you may be interested in continuing education credits. You can get continuing education credits for this particular session if you are a licensed mental health professional. We cover all licenses. If you look in the chat, I have put a link. So if you're interested in registering and you have not already registered, you can click on that link and you can register for continuing education credits. Just know a couple of things. So like any other continuing education workshop, you got to stay throughout the whole thing. And anybody knows me, I always got ways to make sure that you stay throughout the whole process. At the very end of this particular talk, we will put a link in and we will open up an evaluation, and it will have some questions that are relevant to what we talked about today. So you can feel free to, if you want the continuing education credits, once you pay the fee, then fill out that evaluation, answer the questions, and we will send you a continuing education certificate. And even if I have some school psychologists on the school site, we got you covered. So we cover all licenses in the mental health field. So thank you so much for showing up. The other thing that I always have to talk about is whether or not we have any conflicts of interest. We do not have any conflicts of interest. We're not getting paid to do this by any outside organization. We are here today in our professional capacity representing A Healing Paradigm and really just trying to be a service to the community. So I am glad that you are here. With all that being said, and hopefully I did not forget anything, I want to just turn this over to our amazing experts. So I'm going to start out with the first question that I'm going to throw out to the two of you. Since you're both African-American males and you went to public school in the United States, tell me about like the racism or the experiences that you had within the school system in terms of systemic oppression and how that impacted you in terms of the work that you do today. Whoever wants to go.
I'll start off with this, if that's okay. So I actually, you spoke about this numerous times. It was really my third grade year. Grew up in Atlanta, in surrounding areas, College Park, Riverdale, and going through school, I love school. I love learning things. My first grade teacher was awesome. My second grade teacher, very good, supportive. By the time I got to third grade, I ended up having this big clash. And the main thing that was going on was the teacher essentially would devalue comments that I would make or things that I would try to learn or contribute. And my personality was generally inquisitive, and she would always shut that down. In contrast, there was another student in the class who was biracial. His mom was Australian and would always kind of come to the class. And my third grade teacher loved his mom, loved him. And I just remember trying to figure out why, like, what is this difference? And then, my parents started to kind of communicate it to me. It still was kind of hard to understand. But the biggest thing I remember is just how my behavior changed, how academically I started to perform much different. I was always a good student. Third grade was my worst academic year ever. And I just remember how I felt of my teacher doesn't like me, so I just don't like school anymore. And so luckily by fourth grade, I had another wonderful teacher, Ms. Hall, which is still out there. Awesome job. But I just think if I had gotten another teacher that fourth grade year who was not supportive, who didn't sort of buy into the system of oppression that the school system creates, what trajectory would I have been on? And so that stuck with me. I actually did research in my dissertation looking at the phenomenon, wrote book chapter on this particular issue. And so that's been kind of my driving experience from third grade, and I see it play out over and over again from the work I've been doing with clients and their school experiences.
So, Calvin, how about you? Were there experiences of racism or just other kinds of oppression that happened in your school experience? Particularly because I know that you said you went to all Black schools. Yeah. So there couldn't have been racism or anything or any oppression in those schools, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I honestly don't. Like, I'm having difficulty coming up with an experience within the school system. That's a lie. I don't know if it's necessarily based on, I don't know what it was. So my guidance counselor during my high school, like my senior year of high school, I just remember telling her that I was going to go to college and I was going to double major in math and psychology. And I just remember her saying, "Oh, no, you can't do that." And I, huh? Like, what do you mean? And to this day, I still don't understand what she meant by that. If she was saying I wasn't capable of doing it, if she just had never heard of that before, I don't know. But I remember being like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I got to prove you wrong." So I didn't really have though, and my guidance counselor was a Black woman. So I don't know if I was. It had never registered that might be oppression, but it was just like, oh, here's somebody else who doesn't think I can do it. That's cool. I just don't know her.
And that's interesting. Okay, so you told your Black woman guidance counselor that you were going to double major in psychology and math. Yep. And then what'd you major in? I forget.
Psychology and math. I don't know. And so that's why I'm like, I don't know what she meant. I really could not understand that. And I still don't. As the guidance counselor, especially, this is somebody who's supposed to take time to really encourage. And like, even if you don't think I can do it, let's have a conversation about it, not just, "Oh, no, you can't do that."
Right. So those are your two experiences. How are you seeing that? Like, just talk to, because I'm sure we got people jumping on. So we got parents that are here. I'm a parent. If you got children in the school system, how are you seeing this racism, this systemic oppression? And I know it's like racism, classism, gender oppression. There's lots of ways that this shows up. How are you seeing it in the schools?
So it really is, like you say, systemic. And I say that from the standpoint of it goes all the way from personnel and staff at the front office to, people in the halls monitoring what the kids are doing, and definitely into the classroom. And even like Mr. Smith saying, it's not even just what we would assume that it's going to be non-people of color. It's also people of color who, as a member of that system, continues to kind of promote the goals of that system. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, it still happens. And so, they have that theory, kind of the school to prison pipeline, and how we're setting up kids essentially by their school experiences to have these negative outcomes that ultimately can lead to incarceration and various other sort of negative life events. That is a true issue. Research is targeted on that and right on point, because what we see is all of these elements lead to children disconnecting from the school, not feeling appreciated by the school. Again, that when I use the value, I really did feel the value. I felt like I was cool and an important student, and the school was supportive. But once I got to that third grade and had that experience, wait a minute, it really started to change my perspective of how the school saw me. And so luckily I had support from my parents. They were very active. I swear my mom, Lord rest her soul, if she was up there probably every week at that school in third grade. And so I'll say that because the answer to your question is parents are going to have to be actively involved in the situation. We're going to be the child's protection. There is a power hierarchy. The child is not going to have as much power to be able to argue and fight against the system of oppression, whether they're in the classroom. So we're going to have to be able to jump in and advocate. Again, without my parents, I don't think I would have made it through the actual third grade experience without a lot more fallout or damage.
So Calvin, okay, I want you to talk about the experience because you are a school psychologist, so you've worked in the school system. So answer that question, but from the perspective of somebody that's worked in the school system.
There are so many things. So even before I was a school psychologist, I was a high school teacher. And looking back on some of my ideologies around teaching and what that should be in a low economic status community, blah blah blah, all the little target words that they like to use. There was this idea that good teaching required very strict discipline. Like you really couldn't be flexible in what you were trying to do or in your classroom. I remember them always saying, "Go crack a smile before November," and I was like, why? So you can see this in a lot of different ways, oppression and it's like historical if you get into that. So like just how we treat Black males or how we can view them unconsciously. Some do it consciously and don't care. Those are people who I can stop that enemy and adjust accordingly. But I think the more dangerous ones are the ones who don't take themselves to say, hey, I might be biased too in how I'm reacting to this situation. Okay. And I've encountered a lot of those teachers who I think are well-meaning, but their actions can be a little, they can be wrong, to say it plain.
They're wrong.
Yeah, I tried to find a nice way to say it. But, so as a school psychologist, it's to another level because now we're dealing with identifying kids who have some difficulty above and beyond what we would consider a typical student. And so a lot of times the kids who are referred, especially for behavioral concerns, tend to be Black boys.
Really? I'm so surprised.
and I am relating it to, like I said, this historical lens of how society in the U.S. has framed Black males to be. So there's this what's it? Jones. Dr. Jones talked about this in one of his books, where he's kind of listing out the 5 depictions that have historically been held for Black men throughout media, throughout society, that started since slavery. Mm-hmm. One would be the anti-intellect. Like you just can't learn. And the only way for me to get you to learn is if I teach you, and I have to be very strict because they're also lazy. And if I don't use this whip to keep you in line, like you just won't do it. And so it's these ways of like using the strict discipline. Dr. Maddox talked about the school to prison pipeline. There are so many similarities in the school system with prison. And it's like, oh, we need to do this to keep you in line so that you can learn. But we don't really expect you to learn a whole lot, just enough, because you have all these difficulties. So it's just it's a lot. So I don't even think we have time to go through all of them.
But I want you to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Maddox.
Well, I just was going to kind of piggyback off what Ms. Smith was saying. The big thing that makes it so dangerous of a system is because it actually is working directly against what should be happening developmentally. If we think about what school is, it should be this environment of positive socialization. It should be this, because what we're doing is we're taking our kids out of our caregiving environment and placing them with the school in a caregiving environment. Like we are trying to be as caregivers, we are trying to be supportive. We're trying to socialize the child, build up their self-esteem, build up their confidence. But the system built in the schools actually works directly against that, based on a lot of the things Mr. Smith was highlighting. And so this is directly counter to